So I'm happy to introduce Greg Gonzalez, who's a project manager at Scheid Vineyards. And so today we're going to talk about harnessing connected agriculture and enhancing the value of operations in an extremely important crop, which is wine.
Yeah, thank you. Well, great solutions we just heard about. I guess I'm kind of the other end of it, the farmer, and how we are, looking for solutions and what we're doing in order to, move along and get to that real IoT of things. So just give you a little background, set the plate here. Scheid Vineyards, we're located in Monterey County, California. So that's between just about 2 hours south of San Francisco, about 2 hours north of Santa Barbara. So people know where those are. We have 10 estate vineyards, around 4,000 acres, and that's 70 miles between our furthest northern and southern vineyards. So quite a large expanse in which we're dealing with. That's 4 AVAs within those ranches, 39 varieties, and our specialty is Pinot Noir, which we have over 20 clones of Pinot Noir itself. So what do we do? So 1972, our founder, Al Scheid, he's an investment banker, and he said, where can I put my money to keep the rest of my money? Well, he decided agriculture is the way to do it. And he decided vineyards was even a better way to do it because of the loss you could carry over from planting to actually gaining a return. So for the last 40 years, we have been a vineyard company. Started out as Monterey Farming Corporation, that is managing our own plus managing clients' vineyards. So we provided the grapes that made a lot of people's wines palatable. And I'm sure if you've ever drank in some of the major chain wines, those are Scheid Vineyards grapes. 2005, those contracts started to wear out. So there were more acres planted, more suppliers available, and we started to say, what's next? Well, 2005, we decided to build a 40 million gallon winery. So if you didn't want our bulk product, we can then take it, crush it, keep it in facilities and sell it as a bulk wine. That expands the market. You can then distribute it across the world in large shipping containers. That too had its pitfalls, saturation of market from, say, Australia, dumping a bunch of Chardonnay in 2009. So we decided, okay, well, what's next? How else can we integrate? Well, that's putting that wine that's sitting in tanks, waiting for a bulk customer, well, putting that into bottles and then distributing it across the world. Or if if Austin wanted to have a wine label, they could come to us and say, hey, we want a brand. Well, okay, well, we have the grapes, we have the winery, and now we have the bottling facility, and we can produce a brand for you. So we're the farm gate now. So that's Vineyard Operations, Winery Operations. That's the sales of not only grape, but wine and also bottled goods. So finished goods branding, Kathy Lee Gifford. It's a new brand that we're doing for her. Direct sales, everything's estate. So that's hospitality as well, so events. And information tech, accounting, and human resources. 100% in-house operation. So this isn't our first run at things. In the mid-90s, we wanted a solution so that we could manage our customers and they could have insight into what was happening in the field with their blocks. We farmed blocks that they specifically got the tonnage out of. And so we needed a way to communicate this without a customer having to frequently visit, because maybe you don't see a customer ever. Maybe you see them once a year, and by that time any changes as the farm year goes on, the changes can't be made, whether it's your irrigation regime, whether it's your cultural practices, whatever it might do in order to manage the quality aspect of it. So at the end of the day, you're hoping they like the product and they don't reject it, and you end up dumping it on the ground. So this is where internally we decided to build our own program. So it started out as Scheid Apps and VitWatch. Scheid Apps was our internal accounting program. So being an investment banking firm and having those as the backgrounds, they said, okay, we need to have our money in line and we need to know how to do that. And then on top of that, we are a UFW organization, so United Farm Workers. So think about all the rules that we have based on people being in a certain piece of equipment, when they're in that piece of equipment, what level are they, what qualifications do they have. So there's a lot of pay structure going on with this. And as we went to the payroll companies and said, hey, can you consume our pay rules? They said, no, because no one else goes by these rules. Fortunately, we do have that IT staff that had D-based programming knowledge, actually a whiz, and he built our own program in order to manage our payroll. This in turn went into kind of a CRM type program where we took our field level data that was all paper and pen, then would come into an office, it would get transcribed, so put into a database, and then served via VitWatch, so vitwatch.com. So we installed our own weather stations. They had visibility into irrigation, how much, what was the soil moisture. We collected phenology data, so that's growth stages from start to finish, from bud break to harvest. So all of this was being collected, and then customers can come into this web portal and see very basic stages of where they're at, so they could gauge when to come out and actually see, touch, feel, and manage or ask for certain management practices to happen. So VitWatch was our main source of doing everything until around 2009 when I joined the company as an intern. My background is in geographic information systems, but I've applied it specifically towards social aspects. So where to put schools, where to put fire hydrants, things like that. But in doing that, I learned a lot about ethnographic research, so understanding culture and then how to apply technology. I also decided to get my degree in Earth Systems Science and Technology. So remote sensing, how do you start streamlining data flows? And I came in and they said, okay, I've read some stuff and we think it's cool. How can you apply it? And you know, do you have a GPS unit? Oh, I think we have something. So open the shipping container, dusted off the cobwebs, and they actually had a very high grade DGPS unit that was left over by USGS and the California Condor Act. So because of the distance between our properties, the 70-mile span, in the early 80s, they decided to make our properties the hubs for monitoring the California condor. Our company then piggybacked that, and it kind of went out, and they kind of just left everything and said, go ahead if you want to do anything, or yeah, right, you guys are going to do something with it. Well, we just started mapping it. So I started building our infrastructure. They loved this because we now had documentation between planted and owned acres. So in terms of tax or rent, we were now changed all of our things to saying, hey, this is farmed acres versus the actual lot line. We're only going to pay rent with what we're making money off of. So immediate implement of what it is to just have your point, your polygons, your shapes, your lines. And this evolved from general block outlines to, as you can see, row by row auditing of what we have. So if someone goes down a row, harvests a row, they know all that is. They know how many acres they just harvested. They know how many pounds are in or tons are in the truck. And so now we have a very good idea of our pounds per acre, tons per acre, cost per acre, cost per vine. So production, being in a union environment, was very important to us. So building the infrastructure to allow us to manage production was very important to us. So that's everything from our neutron probe site, which is a physical measurement of inches per square foot of water, to our legacy data, so getting out the old maps of our irrigation infrastructure, getting out there and, oh, 5 minutes. Oh, okay. And, well, just mapping it, knowing where everything's at. I was asked again, okay, well, now where do we go from here? Well, I need to learn how to farm wine grapes. And so they gave me 300 acres, and I started the whiteboard and sticky note aspect of it. So what is our process? How do we go about things? Where can we then apply technologies to increase efficiencies? So it's streamlining, it's going through guys, it's spending lots and lots of time with in the field, with crews, with people, learning exactly how to do it. And then it created a streamlined data acquisition. So talking about how to bring value to something. So safety, you cannot argue with safety. So one of the first projects that I did with this new infrastructure that I mapped is I created a ski slope, but based on our vineyard blocks for level of operators that need to be. So experience of operators within that block as you're driving a machine harvester. Immediate from implementation, so that picture is a rolled over tractor. That is the year prior to me doing this. Since then, we've had 0 major incidents because we've stuck to this ski slope scale. So all the guys that are experts are in the black diamonds. All the guys who are beginners are in the green squares. Paper, that's a kind of a mess of paper, but now everything's digital. So everything, I didn't change the forms, we just changed how we enter it. So everything is getting collected from the field and it's getting back into the office. You know, our traditional way of measuring soil moisture has now evolved to continuous probes. All of our rolling assets now have GPS on it. So we have yet, and since the 5 years we've deployed asset management or GPS-based assets management, we have yet to replace an engine. This used to be 2 or 3 a year. So huge return on that as well. As you can see, there is a lot of things and a lot of entities and a lot of tools that we're using. So it's creating this connected farm environment. But if you guys were to come to my office or look at my truck and see how many screens I have up based on all the stuff that we're applying, you know, it's overwhelming. So where are we now? We are connected. Everything's getting a point. Everything has a data point. It's traditional information in a new form. So it relates to our guys who've been farming for the last 40 years. And we're really trying to capture that knowledge base. So they've been farming for 40 years. How are we going to last another 40 years without their knowledge, boots on the ground, how the soil feels, how the grapes smell, everything. So it's enabling the ground level, and it's enabling a new generation to come in and learn how to farm at a rapid pace so that we don't have catastrophic failure. We're an enterprise, so it starts from the foundation, the vineyard. The vineyard now talks to our winery. The winery now talks to our sales, and vice versa. So if projections go up on the sales side of thing, it filters down and says, hey, I need X amount of acres of a premium program opposed to a bulk program, opposed to a yield. So that managing your yield and quality becomes more important when you're starting to put things to a bottle. So we're farming to a bottle opposed to a yield-based contract. And as little as bringing our infrastructure, so we serve everything on an app. So if you're here in Austin, I can bring up and I can show you a vineyard, the block that you're going at, the history of it, what's going on. So now our sales is connected to the vineyards, that these guys are getting their bottles of wine, that they're putting on their shelf, and that's what they're selling to their consumer. How do you analyze this? That's what we're looking for now. So IoT is what we're looking at in terms of having all that data, but then putting actionable hat on top of it so that it can turn it into information. Yes?
Have you looked at, now that you've been doing this a while, the history so that you can compare what's the optimal conditions to produce premier wines?
Yes. So yeah, we have a legacy of data, and that's where we're looking at in terms of getting help to do it, because I can spend an entire year looking through it and making the correlations, but it's in so many different silos around that getting them together and working together so that they learn off of each other, so that these systems, these patterns can be recognized and then put into action is really that enterprise system that we're working with now. Yes?
Do you have any idea how much value you've saved for the company?
Value. I haven't had the time to. I know that we're doing things. We're doing the same with less. So when I started, we had probably a workforce of around 250. Now we're down to 102. That's just the market. That's the labor demand. That's berries. That's just competition. But by implementing these things, we've still been able to do what we need to do.
I was going to ask a similar question, but can you produce more wine on the same acreage?
That absolutely. Yeah, and I think everybody in agriculture is going to have to figure out that equation. The footprint's not expanding, but I think there is, in terms of technologies and monitoring and becoming more precise, that there's absolutely more yield in every square foot of every piece of ground that's being farmed right now.
What kind of sensors are you employing right now?
So our traditional method of sensor or human sensor based stuff is pressure bomb. So that's stem water potential. So that's how hard the vine is working for that water, and then I don't think so. I think it's a different term. And then soil moisture. So we're in a soil moisture depletion, and then at certain parts of the year, we're looking at how hard that vine is working for it. So that sensor, the pressure bomb, is now working with it. It's hard to find stuff that's reliable on that end of it, and then obviously the weather, our own weather station network.
Your pressure thing, the guy has to go out and actually connect to the stem.
Yeah, so he brings this big box that has a pressure chamber in it, takes a leaf off, puts it in the chamber, closes it up, puts nitrogen gas in it, and then it gives you a negative bar, which is 10 saying it's fine, it's working fine, up to 16 where you know that you're stressing the vine. You're actually tricking the vine into producing fruit, producing seeds, and going into basically a state of shock, which produces higher quality wine. Yep, stress.
So how do you connect those sensors?
Yeah, okay, so how have those, so it's evolved. So it went through, hacking into cell phones. So just taking an open-based platform and knowing that if I hit it to this and I tell it to dial this number, it will start sending information out. So we used email as kind of the first way of doing it, and it emailed to a server, and it took that file and then projected it out into DBase to cellular nodes. So that's valve actuation, that's soil moisture, and that's the weather stations. To now our weather station has become our gateway, and now we're working with the radio frequencies now that that's opened back up. So. All right, yeah, thank you guys very much.